Well, good afternoon, Scott Baker, Mallory Stacy. Happy Monday to you both. Happy December as well.
Yes, it is. December 1st, 3 o'clock. Welcome to our daily meeting because we do these every single damn day. And
Your
so here
your
we,
your normal
uh
enthusiasm needed to be tempered intentionally because of the
the
subject
topic.
of
Yeah.
today's field
It's,
note.
it's like a self indictment. Yeah. So field
Yeah.
note number 1635, the title is Why Does My Organization Have So Many Meetings?
Yes.
For some of you, you're like, yeah, right. But you're watching now because you wanted to connect with us, and that's good. And or you're listening on driving someplace or during a workout. Great. Well, we're glad you're here. So let's talk about this and see where it goes. I mean, let's say it this way, because I know right before we started the roll, we were talking about holiday traditions and all of that. But just on this issue of meetings, would we say, in general, that the planet would be better off if we just said, we're having too many family dinners.
Yeah.
We should just, all go back to our devices.
No, if
Well,
you're gonna
no.
put family dinners in with what a typical meeting is, then there would be a rebuff.
Well, that's the question. So, what's the appropriate amount of connection or purpose that has to be involved for a meeting to be effective?
Right.
Mallory, do you have a thought?
Gosh, like to throw it, it depends on what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, if this is
It does. Yeah.
there's too much, there's a little bit of nuance there. Like, what is the right time? It depends. Is this a 15-minute meeting, a 30-minute meeting, or an hour meeting? And maybe an hour meeting is justified depending on the purpose.
Yeah.
The problem is when we have a 15-minute meeting that takes an hour because we put an hour on the calendar.
That's the problem, right? And that's what I think the field note is getting at, is that we've had this rapid rise in meetings. Some studies have showed this wild escalation. Now, some of that driven by COVID and people being remote or hybrid and all the rest of that. But in many organizations, and I know some of you are in these organizations where this is not a problem. You're like, I feel so lucky, right? And you are. But I don't know, Mallory, you're in lots of organizations. Do you sense that they have more meetings now than they used to? I mean, there's been a lot of pushback against too many meetings. Has it gotten any better?
There has been, but don't you think with the remote
It just
culture and the
offsets. Yeah.
remote shift, we've upticked our meetings because that's our way to connect in a remote world. We can't just do
Yeah.
a drive by your desk or let's pull into a conference room. We now have to schedule a meeting so that we can connect, so that we can show that we're working. So it's up. I think it's upticked more. I do think it's interesting too when we go with a large group of different people. At times during a dialogue, we'll say, okay, are you a 15-minute meeting culture, a 30-minute meeting culture, or an hour meeting culture? And you'll get some people who will raise their hand for like a 45-minute or an hour meeting culture. And I can't imagine if I said to you, hey, Scott, let's grab time together and you put an hour on our calendars. But there's organizations like that too.
I don't know. I think well, what that made me think of, I'll just kind of do it right in the moment. You could have, there are podcasts and podcasters who are famous for having 2 and 3 hour podcasts. And they will always say, it doesn't get good until the third hour. Like the real ideas don't actually start to bubble until the third hour. So what if we're having too few meetings and they're too short?
Yeah.
Or maybe, I guess the answer there, I'm being a little bit, a little hyperbole here, but maybe the idea is you have certain offsites, but you allow time for really extended discussion, but then you keep everything else tight.
Yeah. It feels to me like the whole thing is a communication problem. Like it's just a downstream error. Like the famous thing is if you need sales, that means your marketing has an issue. If you need marketing, that means that your product has an issue. And like if you need meetings, that means your communication is probably like if you need all these meetings, then the way that you communicate about them is needs to be fixed. I've got a graphic, by the way. I found this study that was done. So this is specifically on declining meetings, like the people feeling the freedom to decline meeting. I am hesitant to decline in meetings because I do not want to upset or offend the meeting organizer. Only 47% say there, right? If I skipped a meeting, I would hate to bother a coworker. So this is why I don't decline meetings, right? But on the next page, it talks about like all the different like agree, disagree, like how they got to but I think the key fact is right here. 78% of their employees reported that their managers have not talked about declining meetings, right? So their ability to know when it is okay to decline a meeting and when it's not is something that organizationally is not part of their culture. And so the freedom that an individual says to be like, this could have been an email, and so I'm not going to show up, they don't feel comfortable in kind of even starting the ball to be rolling that direction.
I'm trying to think when I've said, I don't know, I don't think I've ever said, no, I'm not coming to that meeting.
Right, but
have you ever done that, Mallory?
You'd have all kinds of reasons for it, right?
I mean, I think we all have had to say no to a meeting if we've had.
Because of a conflict, right? Because of a conflict or something, but not be like you're inviting me, and I'm like, not worth my time.
It's good to know, Scott. I can invite you to any meeting, you'll just say yes to it.
Mallory, have you ever asked me to do something and I just said no? I am always excited to talk with you, right? So look, and I think maybe that's one of the things here, because the field note makes some very valid points about places where it's just like all about pontificating and political positioning, or even worse, it's about leaders who are calling the meetings because they don't really trust their teams, and so they want to keep oversight on them and they want to weigh in all the time. There's lots of destructive patterns, and I don't disagree. And I love hearing Naval Ravikant, say, look, he works in a culture where it's like, if you ask to have a meeting, they're like, okay, if we don't have this meeting, will someone die? No? Okay, then we're not having the meeting. Like it has to hit the level of life or death. Then maybe we'll consider having a meeting. Certain kind of sectors can work like that. I don't know that the rest of them can. So I think that the question here is purpose, meeting. But when you were saying, Mikey, about a communication problem, I think the way I started to kind of hear that was, well, maybe meeting and relationships and conversation and direction and alignment, they're all the same thing. Right? Sure. A meeting is just is another piece of what good communication looks like.
Yes. So most of the time people are putting off the communication that they need to have in the hallway in order so that they can like have it in what they think of as a better way to have communication in this group forum, right? Like, I don't want to tell you right now, because if I tell you right now, I don't know, my ego won't be stroked in the right kind of way. I need to make an announcement. I can't have your input unless I have everybody else's input. Right? There's all kinds of reasons to be like, I'm not gonna talk about it now. I'm not gonna have a one-on-one meeting with you about it now because I need to wait to have this with everybody, right? Well, and so there are ways to have it.
So the counter to that, though, is that meeting before the meeting. Okay, if we have a big meeting, we have to make decisions. I need to have strategically 4 meetings beforehand with each of the key decision makers, get them on board so that in that meeting, we're all on the same page and we can move forward. So it almost creates more meetings because that big group setting isn't going to work to move the needle. So I guess it really goes back down to, again, purpose and kind of to Scott's point, prioritization. Are we prioritizing our meetings the right way and giving people the tools to say no if they need to say no to a meeting?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the field note does nail the things that need to be nailed, meaning that if you have these time bandit meetings that are just they're all about just like they're unclear on the decisions that are going to be made and who's involved, and they're for the political posturing or for their leaders who are trying to dominate. None of that's good. I'm one, and Mikey can tell you this, I don't think every meeting does need to have sort of a specific purpose all the time. Most meetings probably do. We have a quick meeting every day for our team because we're all distributed in digital. But I still don't get as much casual interaction where the fluidity of ideas comes as we would if we all worked in the same place all the time. Right. And so if you don't have any of that, and we've had people be like, I'm too busy doing this, and certain specialized roles have less of the need for that. But I would say maybe it's selfish, but most of my productive ideas, like where I go back and go, oh, that was something I hadn't thought about, that was a really good idea, comes in the process of just talking something out with no particular point. Somebody will say something, I'll go, well, that was brilliant, right? And then I'll start to chew on that. But I couldn't plan that. I couldn't predict it. And so you have to have, and I think that sometimes you can get regimented. You can get regimented to have too many meetings, but you can be regimented against the meetings, and you kind of squish out the lifeblood.
Right.
then that feels like the purpose to me, because that is the what happens if this meeting doesn't exist. Okay, well then you don't have creativity and you don't have conversation to help move you and push your original thought. So that serves a purpose. But if you guys were all getting on the phone or video and just sipping coffee and staring at each other and not getting anything done, okay, well then it's just a meeting to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
But I would imagine, Mallory, the leaders that you coach, right, at the very top levels, they're having many more of these kinds of meetings. And what we know is this is maybe better than nothing, but it's still not quite the same, right? How many, because we know from the studies that have been done in the last 5 years that you lose the actual, I'm looking at my camera right now. Some people are listening at home. So that if somebody happens to be watching on social media right now, or if they're watching on YouTube, and now actually, and here's what I'm doing for everyone listening. I'm staring at the camera and I'm not blinking and I'm not looking away. And if I do that for more than 4, 5, 6 seconds, it actually makes you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Because it looks like I'm reading these words off a teleprompter or staring into your soul. Because we don't do that in normal life. We look down, we talk around, we laugh, we have little micro expressions. We get to really understand and know the person. And so you might say as a leader, well, I know my team. I had a Zoom with them, once a month. I don't know that you do.
Yeah. Okay, so the meeting clincher here in the field note is that it needs to have, where's the sentence? A purpose, justified with a purpose, an agenda, and a decision goal. Mm-hmm. But not necessarily all three, is it? Because it feels almost like there are meetings that we need to call where we're not making a decision.
Well, maybe that's the purpose. Maybe you just say the purpose of this meeting is just to hang out for 15 minutes. Yes. And that's it. And then the decision will be, we actually don't make a decision.
Yes. Right.
Right. So,
that's what's important. If you're about having a brain, it sounds like the criteria that Naval mentioned means that he's never going to have a brainstorm. He's never going to be in a situation where he allows people to just talk without, right? Because there's never a life, defined kind of reason to not have or to have a brainstorm. But I want those extra ideas in the room, and I want to get people's buy-in, right? I want to feel like other people have contributed in such a way so that they're invested in the future, right? And I'm not going to do that necessarily just by getting everybody's buy-in with an email. I almost need the energy of the group in order to create that kind of a thing. But that's not going to have a decision in it unless we're able to say the decision is to not decide, which I think is a fun way to kind of handle it.
I still think the problem at heart, though, is a full back-to-back day of meetings where people do not know or have the ability to say no to a ton of the meetings.
Right.
And then they have no time for themselves to be more strategic, to think more deeply, to actually do their work. They get to the end of the day, and now it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're going to have to do all of their work they need to do or think more strategically.
Yes, right.
I still think there's that issue of we've got to be able to help people say no to meetings when it doesn't have a purpose or isn't going to serve something, or they're just there to highlight what they've already.
Oh, I think we lost the mic.
We lost some mic, but we got the gist of it there, Mallory, because we
remind readers.
Yeah, we have our own meetings that we have once every 2 months for our firm. And we get together, and the purpose of it feels more like, it just feels like what we should be doing to get together. There's not always decisions that are being made. And then it turns into 2 full days of meetings. But I've never even thought about it, Mallory, that, there's a couple times where I can just I'll decline that one and I'll decline that one. It doesn't I feel like my attendance is mandatory on every single one of them, because it's another instance where organizationally we haven't really talked about how you can decline those meetings, right? And what does make sense to you. Maybe it's because most people kind of run their own book of business. They run their own P&Ls that it's just kind of understood. You could decline any meeting that you want to. But I don't run my own P&L. So I don't feel that freedom, right, to just decline a meeting.
Okay, Mikey, so let's play out the scenario. So Scott said he doesn't decline a coffee chat. So let's say everybody in the entire firm, and as leaders advance, there's more and more people who is the everybody in the firm. That's Scott. Hey, Scott, can I grab 30 minutes for a coffee chat? You can't do that all realistically within the same few weeks, or you won't have any time to do these field notes, lead betters with Mikey, or do any of the other
Right,
people.
exactly. Yeah.
So
But if you want to talk to me, I will eventually get to you. We'll find a date. It's just it's like in a given day, don't overload it. I like having a clear schedule, right? In fact, that's the thing that you see in certain kinds of specialists who are writers and those kind of things. Ryan Holiday is one, and even Naval. It's like, it's like have a totally empty schedule. That's a beautiful thing, right? So, and the what?
So then the trick is, how do you do that? How do you clear your schedule more so that you don't get filled with 100 coffee chats?
Well, or you build them around other things, right? I had somebody text me today, and I know we're over time, but just to show you that it was somebody that I've wanted to talk to. They wanted to talk to me, and I knew that I was going to be driving someplace on Wednesday, and I said, "Can you do 12:30 on Wednesday?" And they were like, "Sure." So I'll redeem that time that I'll be in the car for 20, 25 minutes because I pre-scheduled that time. And so we'll have a great conversation. If we need more time, we'll schedule that later. So I just look for windows like that. And I like it. I had some extra time last week because, my family was on a trip that I couldn't go on just because of some other scheduling things. So it opened up a couple extra days where I had a lot more fluidity. And I had things to do for our work, but I had many more extended conversations because I had flexibility that were really powerful, that would not have normally happened, right? Because I had a little extra time to lean into the conversations. Some of them were spontaneous, some of them were planned. And so I just think that you can find that mix. And I think that the good thing would be to I think from the field note is a leader should be very aware of what's going on in the meetings, right? Meaning saying, we don't need this one. Let's have it. Let's focus on this. But I don't think there's a value in denigrating meetings overall. Some of the most important things that have ever happened in human history and will happen in the human future happen because people get together and talk about stuff.
Well,
so
we need to come up
just
with
get good at that.
We need to come up with a meme that counteracts the "this should have been an email" meme, right?
Yeah.
Because if we're really going to redeem meetings in that way, we need something pithy that can counteract that.
Yeah,
Well, we all,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, but look, we all know an email cannot change your life unless it's a field note.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Thank you both for your time today. Appreciate it. Great meeting.
There we go. Great.
All right. Bye now.
About it.